This is my brother's gaming PC, and we took it from this to this with the help of our friends at both Aorus and Lee. Yeah, I think my brother really needed this PC upgrade, so let's go over how we did it. Previously, my brother's been rocking a 4th gen Intel Xeon system, which, to be honest, is kind of an underrated sort of budget CPU, but considering that he plays really CPU demanding titles like Helldivers 2, yeah, that really wasn't cutting it anymore. When we pair that with the fact that he had 16GB of DDR3 and an RX 5700 XT, he felt like his PC just needed a bit more compute power, particularly on the CPU front. Which is why we've gone with AM5. Naturally, any PC gamer should be gravitating towards this platform because it's just supremely versatile. It's got a lot of life left in it, at least a CPU generation or two. But we're starting off with the origins of this platform with the Ryzen 5 7600. Now, this is a fantastic value and budget CPU on the AM5 platform. I partially chose the CPU because of that, but mainly because I've got it lying around. You're probably fed up of seeing the Ryzen 5 7600 already. Rest assured, you probably won't be seeing it, at least in the short-term future, because it's going to be in this PC. However, if I was starting from scratch, I'd go with the Ryzen 5 9600X for its slightly better memory controller, and it's got quite a bit more gaming performance of around 15 to 20% more than the 7600 Non-X, which is kind of a substantial improvement. Anyways, the 7600 is slotting into the B850M Gaming X Wi-Fi 6 from Aorus. This is a fantastic little micro ATX motherboard, as you've got the compact size of M80X, but you don't really lack any of the full-size ATX features. Yes, you do get fewer PCIe slots. For a gaming rig, do you really need that many, especially when it's got Wi-Fi built in? But it's still got really beefy VRM heatsinks, much to the point where if my brother wanted to upgrade to a 9800X3D down the line, you can just slot that in with no problems at all. Or if you wanted a Ryzen 9 for some reason, yeah, this motherboard will take it with no problems. There's two M.2 slots on this motherboard, one of which is Gen 5, which we won't be utilising today as we've gone with a Crucial P310, which is a Gen 4 drive, but for gaming you won't really see that much of a performance difference, so that's great. And this SSD has also got the capacity at 2TB. Yeah, I don't think my brother's going to be running out of space anytime soon, but knowing him, he will probably find a way with the amount of mods he installs for his game, so he'll probably max this drive out. And filling two of our 4 DIMM slots is our kit of Crucial Pro OC DDR5. It's clocked in at 6000 megatransfers per second CL36, so it doesn't have the tightest timings in the world, but to be honest, it really doesn't matter that much. My brother's not going to be there monitoring his FPS every millisecond of gameplay. He really doesn't care. As long as it's relatively smooth, which it will be, he doesn't care. And the speed of 6000 megatransfers is the sweet spot for Ryzen. And naturally, a PC build is gonna need a case. This is where Lee sent out their O11 Dynamic Mini V2, and to be honest, I had my reservations about this case at first, but let me tell you this, it's fantastic. It's kind of a weird blend between an ATX and a micro ATX case, because you can use either motherboard and it will still look great. Obviously, we've gone with micro ATX and it looks brilliant. All we needed to do was move this little plastic thing towards the rear I/O of the motherboard. We moved it up so the micro ATX motherboard fills out the build a bit more, especially when we put fans in the bottom, which we populated with the CL series of Lee's uni fans. The reverse blades, so they look great at the bottom, and you don't really need that many cables for these. All you need to do is just hook up the PWM signal to your case, and the RGB is handled wirelessly via this USB dongle, I guess is the best word for it. Anyways, if you were thinking it's going to be a cable management nightmare, it certainly isn't. Also, the positioning of these fans allows for very good cooling for our graphics card. Speaking of which, Aura sent out their 9060 XT 16GB gaming OC, and this is a fantastic card, much to the point where I'd say it's the best value one in 2025. This is because you're getting 16GB of VRAM, which is basically the sweet spot, let's be honest. It's quite a lot of VRAM, especially at the lower end. And you're also going to be getting fantastic 1080p and Quad HD gaming performance. Oh, also, by the way, if you want to check out the performance of this graphics card in a dedicated video, we made one which you can watch up there. Also, for you fans of flashing RGB, this GPU's got some addressable RGB on the side of it, so you can control that in Gigabyte Center, so W there as well. So with it all finished and assembled in the case, this PC is kind of a blend between an RGB slash sort of lit gaming PC, and it's also a bit stealthy with the Noctua parts we put in there. I know we didn't really go over them, but for the caller we've got the NHD 12L and a pair of NFA12 Chromax fans which look great in a build like this, and they're also extremely silent. But looping back to the lighting, like I said with these CL Uni fans, the RGB is controlled via a wireless sort of dongle, which I think's great innovation. Gone are the days where you've got to hook up 5 million different cables for RGB, because that seriously was not fun. And best of yet, once you sort of sort out your lighting, so say we've got it on the static blue, you can just take the dongle out. Like, I'll do it right now for you if you want. Yeah, there you go. So the dongle's here and the lights have remained on what I've set them at, which is brilliant. And to control the other RGB, you need Gigabyte Control Center, which as motherboard softwares go, it's really not that bad. It actually works, unlike some of the competitors, Asus. Anyways, it's fairly intuitive, and you can even update your drivers through here as well, so it just makes it a bit easier for you. You don't have to dig around sort of like web pages to update drivers for your motherboard, so that's great as well. But that's all well and good. How well does it play games? Truth be known, I haven't actually benchmarked this PC per se, but I did test the 9060 XT in a very similar spec machine. Our testing PC's got a Ryzen 9 7900X, which is essentially two 7600Xs glued together. And when we tested at 1440p, we were barely CPU bound, and you probably won't be CPU bound in this PC as well. So let's go over those numbers. Let's start off with Cyberpunk 2077, and at 1440p on the Ultra preset, you're going to be getting around 73 FPS on average, which is absolutely fantastic. That is brilliant performance from a gaming PC like this, and I don't think you'll be having any problems there, especially with the 1% low hovering at around 51 FPS. Yeah, the frame time is quite smooth as well. Maybe there's a little room for improvement, but overall, it's quite smooth. Switching up to a more unoptimized game in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, yes, we will be dropping below 60 FPS at native 1440p. However, this is on the Epic preset, which is really taxing on hardware, so that doesn't really help our case today. But the 1% low is at 47, which is kind of smooth for this game's standards. So what I'll probably do is just lower all the settings down to high and keep the textures on Epic, and yeah, you'll be having a great gaming experience here. Then there's God of War Ragnarok. Yeah, this game is extremely well optimized. Even on the Ultra preset, you're not going to be having any problems, especially with VRAM, because that 16 gigabytes is not going to be posing any trouble for us today. But the frame rate at 87 FPS on average with a 1% low of 71 is absolutely fantastic, and you won't be having any problems here. But if you wanted to get a bit more competitive and play, say, Fortnite, you're going to be getting some absolutely brilliant performance here. 408 FPS on average with a 1% low of 231 is really not that bad, especially if you had like a 360Hz QD OLED. Yeah, you'd be getting an absolute fantastic gaming time out of this GPU. But if you wanted to enable ray tracing, say in Cyberpunk 2077, on the RT Medium preset, you're going to be getting just shy of 60 FPS at 59, so yeah, we've missed off by one. However, the 1% lows they're okay at 41, they're nothing to write home about. Not the smoothest right there, so yeah, ray tracing is technically doable, but it's not technically the best. But if you needed to play a hard requirement ray tracing game like Indiana Jones, which my brother couldn't do before because of the 5700 XT, yeah, he can do it perfectly fine with 83 FPS on average and a 1% low of 73 FPS. So there's absolutely zero problems there. He's not going to be having any trouble playing that game. So yeah, I think overall my brother's not really going to be having any issues playing at 1440p on this PC, because the performance from the 9060 XT 16GB is absolutely fantastic, and you know that the 7600 isn't going to let it down. Even then, if he needed a bit more CPU power, the 9800X3D literally exists. Yes, it's probably a bit overkill paired with this GPU, but it's something that you can upgrade to without upgrading literally anything else in this system, because even the core will be able to handle that perfectly fine. So yeah, considering what his PC was like before, yeah, this is like one of the biggest upgrades we've done here on the channel. So, am I a W brother for upgrading his gaming PC? I would like to think so, because he's having a much better time gaming now, like especially like Helldivers. He can actually play some of the higher tier missions because they get extremely intensive, particularly on the CPU. And you just know the 7600 is going to be handling it a lot better than a 4th gen Xeon. But I want to say a massive thank you to both Lee and Lee and Aurus for making this PC build possible. If you want to pick up any of these parts, they will be linked below with my Amazon affiliate links. If you do pick anything up through these links, I will make a small commission at no extra cost to you, and you would really be helping out the channel. But if you want to see a more in-depth video on how well the 9060 XT plays games at both 1080p and 1440p, got a video for you up there. With that being said, I'm going to drop this off into my brother's room because he is really eager to play games on it. So yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.